All right, click the links to join the channel here or over at Subscribestar. Thanks to everyone over there. Someone is sending me a tablet, so we'll try that with a new microphone next week. So Nick, N-word, Fuentes, Destiny, spicy performance on Fresh and Fit. Just another red herring and shiny object to. Oh, wait, we got to focus on Hunter Biden and his Bolivian marching powder. I feel like that might be a distraction. No, you need to get upset about this. The media is telling me to get upset about something. That means you're not looking in the direction you should be. So people want free speech across platforms, and it seems like there's this percentage of people on the left who are terrified of free speech for some reason. That open marketplace of ideas, like, why wouldn't you want your ideas out there and heard? Like, no, we need to censor the platform. That kind of lets me know that you don't have good ideas. You don't have a better argument. So what happened is Nick Fuentes, who was kicked off YouTube, I guess for being too honest, started his own network on Cozy and does live streams over there. He's a political pundit, right of center, but not politically correct. But he's also not a far right person. The media, whatever the media says about him, I've heard him a few times. Like he's too young for me to listen to. Like once you're over a certain age, you can't listen to anyone under like 30 or something. But he's not saying anything crazy. I mean, they say that about everyone who's just outside the spectrum of right wing, like the Red Eyes, the Jared Taylor. They say all these things about him, and you go listen to him on Odyssey and BitChute, and you're like, I'm not hearing anything crazy. And then after a while, you look at the media, like, yeah, you guys just lie about everything. You call everyone who's a millimeter to the right of Ben Shapiro some Hugo Boss type. I mean, it's just freaking ridiculous. So he was kicked off, as well as Soph was kicked off also. She was really funny, but you really can't threaten the CEO of the company, the platform you're on. So for some reason, the left wing has made this guy out to be the devil himself, when he pretty much just covers mainstream normal politics. I mean, in 10 years, this guy's going to be absolutely huge unless they have him Epstein or something. But he uses a little bit of harsh language, and he's like 24 or something. I guarantee in a few years that language will evolve. So he goes on this show, Fresh and Fit, which is a genius show because it's so insanely stupid, but it makes a ton of money. You see a bunch of these shows on Rumble and YouTube, this kind of stuff where it's just the shiny object of shows. It's just entertainment, but that's fine. People pay for entertainment. It's one of the bigger shows on Rumble. It's just very light, fluffy, battle of the sexes type of stuff. They invite whores on. They call them whores. They make a ton in super chats. Then they laugh about the whole thing afterwards. The show's about boobs, which, don't get me wrong, are very, very nice. But, what you're getting into when you see a bunch of chicks in I don't know, like Lycra dresses that if you took the dress off, the dress probably weighs as much as their underwear. So every so often they will do real interviews. So credit to them for doing brave interviews where the platforms themselves don't want these people on. Like people like Alex Jones or Fuentes or Tommy Robinson. Those are just milquetoast, normal right of center people. But the puppet masters kick them off the mainstream platforms and they want them shut down. So it does take balls to interview them. Credit to Nerd Roddick on his channel on YouTube for interviewing, and Rumble too, interviewing Alex Jones at one time. Because you're interviewing somebody who was kicked off. It's like, well, the platform could just also kick you off. Like they wouldn't lose any sleep over kicking off a channel, even if you've got 1 million followers. It means nothing to Google. So it does take balls to interview these people. And Rumble is not free speech at all. They're going through the App Store. So Google and Apple control 90% of app traffic through the App Store. Back in my day, we had to download things, spyware check them, malware check them, virus check them, set the configurations on the firewall, and we had to do all that stuff ourselves on computers. And now everything just goes through an App Store. It's like, I think they're doing too much for you. Because the problem is, well, they control 90% of app traffic between two of the biggest companies on Earth. That's not a good thing. And gee, maybe our politicians, what do they call that? When the robber barons get too big, the train companies, the steel companies get too big, they have to break up those companies. Yeah, that's not going to happen. Google and Apple are doing whatever they want to do. And our politicians are not doing anything for us. Anyway, so that Rumble's better than YouTube for sure, but it's not like it's based or anything. You can assume everything on the net is fake in some way. Like they're the equivalent of those scripted reality shows. Nothing is real. It's all theater. They go out afterwards and they have drinks. But that was one of the points I wanted to make, the rise of alternative media. And they did the show and they hit 100,000 viewers on the show last night, which is very impressive. This Destiny guy, I hope there's no fans. He just he didn't know what he was talking about. He didn't seem to not know what he was talking about. He did not know what he was talking about. And his arguments were not good arguments. From that show last night, I heard him, I think, the guy did not belong in the show. He sounded like a teenager who was just kind of arguing from emotion. He was saying things that were objectively wrong. It could easily have been fact checked. It didn't make sense why he was on the show at all, because everything he was doing was like he was wiggling and deflecting around a lot of the points. It's on Rumble. You can watch the whole thing. It's fascinating. They do this. Shows now, because people are trying to get away from YouTube, they do stuff where they start an hour on YouTube and they simulcast on Odyssey and Rumble, and then after an hour they just go exclusively Odyssey and Rumble to try to get people to all platforms. And so far it's working. Both those platforms are working, are growing just amazingly. The thing is, to have 100,000 viewers on an alt platform, that's very impressive. It means people want to hear what they have to say, and we need more open conversations. We don't need billion-dollar companies controlling the narrative, because there's only so many peak viewing hours for the public attention. What do they call that? From 6 p.m. to 11 p.m. And the mainstream wants 100% of that market. CNN and MSNBC, they get ticked off when they find out they're losing market share. They're losing viewer attention, and they are, because there's only 24 hours in a day. You cannot watch as much CNN as the sheep we're used to if you're tuning into all these alt platforms, which is absolutely friggin' awesome, especially to hear them the MSNBC people start to who's the chick Trump was talking to? She had facial surgery done, and he goes like she's bleeding from her or whatever. She's talking about like, we're the news, we're the source, we're the trusted authority. You can trust us. You can't listen to these other platforms because misinformation, disinformation. You look at MSNBC, you're like, yeah, that's you guys. You are the source of misinformation. They get caught lying all the time, and there's no self-awareness whatsoever. And a lot of people, if you're listening to CNN or MSNBC, unless it's listening to like hear what the enemy has to say, you got to be over 60. Which is the other thing, is that the audience of the mainstream media is aging out, and it's not being replaced because people are going to alt media, which again is just friggin' beautiful. I mean, if they could, they would. If they could, they would outlaw. They would outlaw alt media. Absolutely. So the mainstream wants your attention because they're pushing propaganda. They're pushing the party line. It's like, gee, all mainstream media is all this kind of left wing direction. Shouldn't there be some balance? Oh, that's what Fox is. No, I included Fox is also left-wing media. OAN is not in the mainstream. They got kicked off every platform. I think they're finally back on Twitter now because of Elon. The thing is, every day their power slips away a little bit. And they know that everything is downstream from the ability to communicate. And they hate that people are able to watch Rumble, Odyssey, Gap TV, Shing TV, Cozy, and the rest. There's probably new ones coming every month, because they want to control the narrative and they don't want things outside that control. They call anything they disagree with misinformation, which begs the question, who made them the arbiters of truth? Which is why they lost their freaking minds when Elon got Twitter, because suddenly people were able to talk about things and people started to think, oh, free speech is kind of important. And you look at people who are against it and you go, yeah, I think you're a bad person if you're against free speech, because you're saying it's a master-slave relationship. You're the one allowing, telling us, dictating the terms of what we can speak and what we can think. That's what dictators do. Anyway, so social media is the new town square. There's no alternative to Twitter in terms of reach. If you're running for office and you get kicked off Twitter or Facebook, you're going to lose. So they control elections, which is not how a nation should be run. So the logical extension is that free speech on social media would be an extension of the First Amendment. Otherwise, it would be useless. And one wonders, when are our politicians going to start proceeding on that issue? I mean, probably the same time they proceed with the antitrust for Google and Apple, or to have free speech on the app stores or free speech across all these social media platforms. Well, you better not hold your breath on that, because they, and more importantly, their puppet masters, do not actually want the cattle to have free speech. And we really need it. It seems that the left is against it, but they keep saying riots are the voices of the unheard, and we need power to the people and to elevate the marginalized and oppressed. But if you're censored, you are the marginalized and oppressed. That's the definition of having your voice silenced by those in power. And if you have the ability to censor and silence people, then you are the oppressor. You are those in power. And the people who are silenced and censored are the marginalized and oppressed. That's literally the definition of all those terms. They go, oh, it doesn't count for you because you guys are wrong thinkers. But people still have the right to hear those arguments, don't they? And you see the true face of the left wing. No, they fundamentally do not believe. They are the party of censorship and deplatforming. They fundamentally, and they weren't always like this, but free speech on the left, that's been decades. That kind of, I'd have to look to see when it kind of started to shift. Maybe in the 80s and 90s, they started to be more open about moving for censorship. As they got power, as they seized power and the ability, they got in positions of power where they had the ability to censor, then suddenly free speech wasn't a left-wing value anymore. It's like, so what happens when you guys get more and more power? You're going to censor more and more. And like, what else are you going to... That's just a master-slave relationship. You steal somebody's voice and you dictate terms to them. Why are you so afraid of the open marketplace of ideas? Anyway, so before I forget, like if you're triggered by the language that he uses, I mean, you might as well start rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic, because there are much more important issues that if you're ignoring by focusing on, he drops epithets or something. It's like, that's clearly a shiny object, a red herring. If the mainstream can manipulate you with those kind of things, like if there's ever an emotional response, or you see a big swell of energy in one direction, like the Hunter Biden, marching powder story, it's like, soon as you see that, you gotta think, and people are starting to become aware of this. Soon as there's something like that, like a nude photo is released, something that's gonna get attention, you go, oh, what's this distracting us from? Like, whatever the media is all on board with, they all start using the word democracy. This is a threat to our democracy. It's like, well, they're all using that same terminology. Yeah, they're pushing a narrative, something's wrong. Or they're, they say misinformation, disinformation, and then Nina Jankowicz at the Ministry of Truth literally starts up a 1984 Orwellian nightmare. And those are the things like, they're all like the media government. I guess technically is that fascism? I hate to say that because the left also misuses that word. But it's like, yeah, what do you call it when the media, the government, and the social media, and big tech, and every major business and bank, they're all kind of on the same page? I guess that is technically that word. Shame. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe. Thanks for the new tablet and the pocket knives and all this, the comic books y'all have sent me. I'm going to do a review on The Hobbit from a kind of a different perspective, from the perspective of you can't make The Hobbit today. And it's like these comic books with The Hobbit in it. It's just so friggin' fantastic. Honestly, it's like you look at it and like, oh man, people should really be doing graphic novels like this in the mainstream. I know Comicsgate is doing amazing stuff. But you look at The Hobbit and think, yeah, I think this would catch on if you did it like a fantasy. No, you understand. We have to have it like United Colors of Bennington approach. Yeah, you've tried that. It really hasn't connected with an audience. No, we'll find an audience this time. I don't think you're going to. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you guys on the next episode.